So today I knocked off a film that I had been meaning to watch for quite some time. This is 1957's Peyton Place. It's a Best Picture nominee. It's actually nominated for 9 Academy Awards. It did not win any. And after watching it, there have been 539 films nominated for Best Picture. I have seen 487 of those films. I have exactly 52 left, not counting this new crop coming in next year. That's crazy. Um, so many films. But I got 52 left. I can do this. I can't guarantee that I'm gonna watch them all next year. I'll tell you that much. But anyways, Peyton Place. A couple of things. One, it's based on a novel by Grace Meticulous. What is this? That's the novel. And it looks just like the copy that Cher reads in Mermaids. And I bought this in LA, and part of me thinks this is the prop version that Cher read in Mermaids. But let's just go with it and pretend that it is. I actually started reading it, but as you can see, this is a very thick tome, and I only got about 80 pages in, and then I got distracted, and I've barely read anything all year. So, I got behind in my reading, and so Peyton Place did not get read. And then I saw that it was on the schedule for Lana Turner month, and I was like, shit, I forgot to finish reading it, and then I didn't finish reading it, and so I watched Peyton Place without having read anything except 80 pages of the novel. What I can tell you, based on my 80-page reading and watching this entire 2.5-hour film, is that the tone of the novel is much, much more critical of the town and the scandalous nature, if you will, of the people and the insidious gossiping and hypocriticalness of everyone than this film is. It's also much, much more lurid. Like, this is a glossy sort of take on Peyton Place. I kind of wish they would remake it like now. The problem is, if you remade it now, it could be as gritty and crazy. I have like lens flare. J.J. Abrams is directing this video. If you made it now, you could make it as trashy as the book really is. However, all the things that were shocking in 1956 cut to 2017, they're not really all that shocking anymore. So that's unfortunate. The plot is set in a fictional New England town. There's a bit of a potboiler in that Grace Meticulous based everybody and everything in this book on real people in her town. That after she sold this and made a bunch of money, she I believe got in bought an RV or like a Winnebago or something and drove across the country to Hollywood and just lived there until she died. Except she died like 4 years later because she was an alcoholic. So Grace Meticulous has a really interesting story, and I'd like to see a film about her, to be honest, because she has a great, strange life. Anyways, takes place just before the war in 1941. Fictional New England town. You have like the rich people and the people who live in shacks, and all the kids go to the same high school, but they all know the different class differences and know the things that are going on. Especially in the book, it's much clearer based on their clothing and things, who's who in society, and where their houses are. And none of that, like the geography of Peyton Place, isn't well established in the movie, nor are the class differences based on costumes, because everyone looks nice because it's a Hollywood film. The plot follows two main girls, Allison Mackenzie, played by Diane Varsi, and Selena Cross, played by Hope Lange. Selena Cross is the poor girl whose stepfather eventually, spoiler alert, rapes her. And Allison Mackenzie is played by Diana Varsi. Her mother is Lana Turner. And more spoilers, Lana Turner had an affair with a married man, and Allison is illegitimate. And should point out that in the 1950s, she would have been considered illegitimate, and probably there were still, if not just social stigmas, there was definitely, if not just social stigmas, there was possibility of some actual bits of laws that were still kind of against children born out of wedlock. Look that up. There's some crazy shit that took a long time to get that legal prejudice taken away, so that kids didn't quote unquote carry the sins of their fathers or whatever. It's really dumb. Because society's awful. And that's what this novel's about. And so it follows them both from their last year in high school through the beginning of the war, through a bunch of drama and eventually murder. And the cast also includes Betty Field, one of my favorites. She is so good in everything, including Picnic and Of Mice and Men. Arthur Kennedy, this was one of his, I believe, 5 films in which he was nominated for an Oscar. 1 Best Actor, 4 Best Supporting Actors, or maybe it was 6 with 1 Best Actor, 5 Best Supporting Actors. He was nominated for a ton. He never won. You also have Leon Ames and Mildred Dunnock and Lloyd Nolan and Terry Moore and Russ Tamblyn in an Oscar-nominated performance as a mousy teenage son who is, his mother takes out her anger at all men on him. I don't know what that says about 1950s. Who else is in this? Like, everybody and their grandmother. Leon Ames, did I say that already? I think I might have. Everybody and their grandmother's in this. So what else about this movie? It looks really nice. It's beautiful. It's written and produced by Jerry Wald, and he had, like, you know, all these great films that he did for Warner Brothers, like Possessed and Mildred Pierce, and a ton of things he wrote in the 30s. And then he sort of bounced from Warner Brothers at the same time that Lana Turner left MGM, and they both found themselves at Fox making this movie. And it is an epic. It's 162 minutes. Unfortunately, I think there are some artistic turns both from Jerry Wald and from Mark Robson that, it was written by John Michael Hayes. I'm sorry, not Jerry Wald, but he used to be a screenwriter. I think there are some artistic choices by all 3 of these men that sort of diminish the impact of the novel. And I'm saying this having only read 80 pages of that novel, but it was so much more biting and critical of the hypocrisy and the just awfulness of these people that, unfortunately, because this is the late 50s, you're still sort of in this post-war reverence of the family and reverence of small town and reverence of the hands that build America, etc. And I think they were afraid to go as far as the novel went because you need the money and the dollars of the people that it's criticizing. And unfortunately, that's how you end up with a film that doesn't quite go as far as the novel chose to. I think Franz Waxman's score is a little too intense. Like, Douglas Sirk is really good at doing high melodrama and just soapy, sudsy wonderfulness. And because his tone always works. He balances the dialectic between trash and art really well. Unfortunately, I don't know that this film quite does that, and I don't think Mark Robson is as good as a director as Sirk in terms of actors, and so his performances are all pretty wooden. Robson started out as an editor, and that's what's crazy is you look at his career going from editing, as assistant editing Citizen Kane, all the way through working with Val Lewton, through some of the films he directed, like The Seventh Victim. It's a great film. Bright Victory also had Arthur Kennedy. That was his Best Actor nomination. And then you get something all the way in the 60s like Valley of the Dolls, which is so wonderful and gets the great camp performances that this kind of story dictates. And yet somehow in Peyton Place, the actors didn't really go there. They're too reserved. And I don't know if it was the studio or the Jerry Wald or what, because Wald often got great performances out of people like Mildred Pierce, and Valley Dolls is also at Fox. So I'm wondering, like, something like Mildred Pierce, Joan Crawford sort of doesn't lean into the soap, and I think that's why Mildred Pierce works. But at a film like Peyton Place, you need to lean into that soap, and I don't think anyone really does. And they play it too straight, except maybe Arthur Kennedy, who really, I think, is the most lived-in character. He's the worst character, but he's also the most lived-in. And there's a great quote from Lana Turner basically saying, like, she doesn't understand how she got her Best Actress nomination for this when she was so much better in a bunch of her other films, including, but not limited to, Green Dolphin Street and The Postman Always Rings Twice. And I cannot stand hard enough for The Green Dolphin Street. That's a great film. Also, Life of Her Own. Check that one out. I will say I loved our Russ Tamblyn in this film. He is so great. and really at the beginning of the film is this mousy kid, and then towards the end of the film is got a bunch of confidence by going into the fighting the war, and he's a much richer person having left the suffocating nature of this town. Um, I just wish the world building of this story were as good as the novel, but I guess you're not ever going to really get a film that can world build as well as a novel because you've got all these descriptions and inner monologues and things that you get in a novel that you just can't do in a film. But I liked this and I enjoyed it, and I recommend reading the book. I'm going to finish it, I promise. And checking this film out. It's on DVD. I think you can rent it, and also it's on Watch TCM right now. This is 1957's Peyton Place, directed by Mark Robson and starring the one, the only Ms. Lana Turner.